Okay, here's a quick walkthrough of the practice problem for Unit 3, the Northern Lights one. So, Northern Lights were recently out, so we're going to try to do that. There's a lot of apps that will show you, or websites that will show you what is called the KP index. So, for your location. So we want to enter that, and then we want to enter the month of the year, because again, during the summer when it's bright out a lot, it's hard to see the northern lights. So that's just a sample. It's not a great app, but it's good. Okay, so enter the KP index. It looks like this is not a decimal, it's a double. And enter the month, and that would be an integer here. So I'm going to make a new project. Unit 3 Northern Lights. Okay, so we're gonna ask the user, and again, I often will just go to other code, and like I've got this scanner and this sample printout and read line. I'm just gonna grab that from another code. I keep a number of tabs open here just to make it easier to code, but this is just standard stuff now. Hopefully it's getting standard for you. We're importing the java.util.scanner so that we can declare a scanner called input here. We're printing out, and we want them to enter the KP index for your location. In a real app, we should be able to look this up or whatever. We're just looking that up. Now that is going to be not an integer, but a double, and we're going to call that KP index. And when we read it in, we're not going to read in next integer, we're going to read in next double. And then we're going to do the same thing again for the next thing, that's the month of the year. Enter the month of the year and we'll just mention that that should be a number between 1 through 12. And I think people know that 1 is January and that sort of stuff, so I don't think we have to do anything more to that. And again, this will be an integer, and this will be the month number, and we're going to read in next int. Okay, so like, again, all these problems, the first things you want to do is do your inputs. So we've got our two inputs, we've got our numbers. Now we're going to follow these rules, and we're going to look through these. So if the KP index is greater than 3.5 and the month is less than 4, then you might want to see the aurora. So we could write that out here as one statement. If our KP index is greater than 3.5 and our month number is less than, what did I say, less than or equal to 4. So it's early in the spring and we have a large AP index, then we can do something. And I wrote that out with an and. I often do this because in some languages you can, but remember in Java we have to use and percent instead of and. And if we're doing an or, it's a vertical line. So I'm doing and percent, which is above the shift 7 on my keyboard. Okay. So if this is the case, you may see the aurora. So I'm going to do a system dot out dot print line. It's a good night to see the northern lights. I'm not quite sure why I capitalize those. Okay, so I did that, and I can try that out now. I test it out. So I want to see if it'll work. I'm going to enter a large KPC and say it's January, and it says good night to see the northern lights. Now I'm going to try some other things. What if we do a low KP index and January? This doesn't work. And then try some other ones here. So you can run out some tests to see if this is going to work. Okay, so that's our first one. Now our second one is like that. So we could actually just duplicate this again. And say if the KP index is greater than 3.5, and in this case we want the month later, the month is greater than 9. here. So it's after September. So it's October, November, December. So we can write that out. And then we could say it's a good night to see the northern lights. Okay, so that looks pretty straightforward here. And otherwise you won't be able to see them. So let's do that. Now, how do we do that? Now, I could try just sticking an else in here. And then we'll print out something like maybe stay home northern lights probably won't be visible. Okay, so now I have that. Now I can test this out. How important it is to test these things out, because you think this might be what you want here, but is in fact not. So we can run this, and I can again test what I just did here, a late month, a high index, and then let's say we're in like November. Oops, that was January. Okay, that's a good test anyway. In January, and it says it's a good night to do the northern lights, but it also prints this out, because this else is only tied to this if here. So if this is true, we do that, else it does. So it's either going to do this or this. It's not tied to this if. So if we want these all chained together, we need to do if, else, if kind of sort of stuff. So what we want to do is do an else if here. So if this is true, do this, else if this is true, this, otherwise it says northern lights. And now if we run this, we enter the same values here. It says a good night, and let's see, enter low KP index and a large month, and it says no, you might want to stay home. So this is one way of setting this up and doing this for this. And this is kind of how these rules were written. Now, you could also do this a different way. I'm seeing this, both of these are checking if the KP index is greater than 3.5. So what if we check that? And then if that's true, we also check this. So you could also do this in another way here. So we could ask if the KP index is greater than 3.5. Here, I'm gonna just comment these out. Well, let's comment these out for now so I can have this here. Oops, not that. I want to do the toggle comments, control/ here. And I'm going to copy these and do it again a different way. So again, I'm going to highlight these. I'm just going to hit control/ to uncomment them. Okay, now I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to ask, well, here. And then I'm going to ask if the month index is greater than 4.5. And then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to put this out here. Okay. So again, I kind of stack this. First, check if the KP index is greater than 3.5 here, and then I want to check either if the month is this or that. So again, I can do that. I can add another one here. I could do a separate if, or we could do maybe an else if, and also print this out here. Oops, right there. And again, I want to move this check up here. So if the KP index is greater than 3.5, then I'm going to check if the month index is less than or equal to 4, say it's good night. Otherwise, if the month index is greater or equal to 9, say that. And then I can do my else here. And say this. Now I think I'm done with this stuff here. I've moved all that up here. So this would be another way of setting it up. Now you should test this out and see if this works, if then else. Now, and again, we can try some different values at 4.5. And early in the year, it's a good night to see the northern lights. What if we try a low KP index? And a month in the middle of the year. It doesn't say anything in this case, and that's here. What if this isn't true? We don't have an else after that. So again, it's good to check. I really need an else, another else here. If the KP index is really low, I need to repeat this down here. Do something like that. Here, so that would be another way of setting this up. And again, you could do it this way or this way. There's good arguments either way. Also, here I got this or this, and when I read this out, I actually said or. If the KP index is greater than 3.5 and the month is less than 4, or the month is greater than 9, then you can see the aurora. I could actually write that in here and simplify this. So I could ask if the month index is greater than 4, and then I could just delete this and say or the month index here. Now, here, often when I do these more complicated things, I set up some extra parentheses. So I have a parentheses around the whole expression, which you are required to do, but then I have a parentheses here and a parentheses here and an or in the middle. You don't have to do it that way, but I think it's cleaner to read. And there are times where if you don't have the parentheses, you can run into some order of precedence where things won't be done in the order you think they are. So sometimes it's nice to put in those parentheses. Okay, so now I have that. So if the KP index is greater than 3.5, then I check if the month index is less than 4 or it's greater than 9, then it's a good night. Else, I say you can stay home. And else, if the KP index is low, I just say you can stay home. So again, I can try this out with some values here. So a high KP index and a late month, a low KP index in any month, and a high KP index and a low month or middle of the summer month here to hit all those options. So again, there are different ways of structuring these if-thens, and you can decide which one is right. Now let's look at one last thing. A bonus challenge is use some constants here for these values. So we have these numbers here. 3.5 is a good one. So I'm going to add that as a constant. So for now, your constants will go right in here after the main thing here. And so I'll want a double. And I'm going to call this KP index. And again, this is the key one. I'm going to call this maybe a high KP index. High KP index. And I'm going to set that equal to 3.5. So later on, we could adjust that. And again, right now, if we have to adjust it, right now it's in one place. But here, if we went to here, it's in multiple places here and here. Let's switch back. Well, here, we'll do it here first. So now if it's just here, I just had to replace this high KP index with this one value here. So now what I was saying is often we do this when we have constants that are in multiple places. So if we look at this one, this would be an even better case because we check for it here and here. So if someone had to go in and make a change to this, they might just change one and forget to change the other. Where if we have a constant here, it's very it's very obvious where that's only in one place and they need to change it there. So that if you want to change it so you get more northern lights, you can maybe change this to 3.3 or higher. You might want it to 4.1. So you just change it here and you don't have to look through all the code and figure out where it's used or not for that. Okay, so that's using constants. And again, we could do the same thing for the start year and the end or early month and declare these as integers here. Now, one other thing is that in constants, we also want to add this final here to mark this as a constant. Constants we put in all uppercase, and we usually put a final there. So, okay. Hope that helps. It's just a basic introduction to this one.